Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Comprehensive Informal Study of Critique of Pure Reason. We're in the Transcendental Deduction of Pure Concepts of Understanding, the B edition, by the way. I haven't said that in the last few recordings, but we are in the B edition, partially because actually, mainly because it breaks down these long walls of text into nice little sections that weren't broken up at all. If I understand it correctly, the A section was just one big amalgamation of all these sections that you've been seeing. Um, and funnily enough, this one's just called Section 23. No preview of what's going to be in here. Um, we were just talking about last time uh, this category has no use for cognition of things other than its application object of experience, and we went over the difference between thinking and cognizing, and how the difference between them is basically whether an object is involved or not. We got to some interesting discussion about whether the subject is an object or not, like object of cognition, or if it's just like thinking. And we had some weird questions that we hope Kant will answer. So maybe he'll do that here, but probably not. It seems like he's not really touching the subject yet. He'll probably get to that later on. Um, I forget what the other parts of the book are called, to be honest with you. But besides like the antinomy section, the transcendental dialectic. There's also doctrine and method at the very end. But hopefully, in between those, like this and those parts, he will touch on that, or just some point in general. But regardless, we're going to keep moving on here into this ominous section 23. um, and we have a soundboard in case Kant says something silly. And this title is pretty silly, so why don't I just zoom in on this and give a little, give a little,
What the hell? Oh my God! No way! Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
me when Kant doesn't title his sections in the second edition of his Transcendental Deduction of Pure Concepts of Understanding. So kind of crazy, but we'll find out what it's about hopefully by actually reading it. So does anyone want to start reading it?
yeah,
We got
sure.
Pat and Harrison here, and we're one of them. Looks like Pat's gonna read it.
Yeah. The above proposition is of the greatest importance, for it determines the boundaries of the use of the pure concepts of the understanding in regard to objects, just as the transcendental aesthetic determined the boundaries of the use of the pure form of our sensible intuition. Space and time are valid as conditions of the possibility of how objects can be given to us, no further than for objects of the senses, hence only for experience. Beyond these boundaries, they do not represent anything at all, for they are only in the senses and outside of them have no reality. The pure concepts of the understanding are free from this limitation and extend to objects of intuition in general, whether the latter be similar to our own or not, as long as it is sensible and not intellectual. But this further extension of concepts beyond our sensible intuition does not get us anywhere. Wrong, wrong, non Euclidean geometry.
Kant had no
So,
conception of this.
so yes. Well, this is really interesting, and I'm going to interrupt myself here because
Mhm.
we had been talking, I think, earlier about the how does Kant deal with multiple dimensions, right? The mathematics of multi-dimension. Well, obviously three is multiple, but if we go into five dimensions or we start talking about tesseracts, right?
Mm,
Obviously, a four spatially dimensional
isn't sensible.
object cannot be given to us. It's
Yeah.
not well, but it is sensible. That's exactly what he's saying here,
Is it?
right? It's
Well,
not
no,
sensible
it's
for
intellectual.
our intuition,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I meant.
So okay, well, oh, hold on. Literally, let me explain what I was talking about. So
Oh, I see. All right, I'm sorry. Continue.
we had this problem with space and time being given in a three-dimensional, or space being given in a three-dimensional form at least, and we now sort of have these disciplines that deal with four-dimensional geometry, for instance, or we talk about relativity and the warping of space-time and all this kinds of stuff. And it seems like we are doing something that is knowledge in some way, right? Extends our understanding. But how does that work for Kant when cognition only works when you apply
Three-dimensional intuition.
concepts to intuitions, and our intuitions are limited to 3 dimensions of space and one time that goes always forward. Well, here he's saying that um, the pure concepts of the understanding are free from this limitation and extend to objects of intuition in general, whether the latter be similar to our own or not, as long as it is sensible and not intellectual. So he's saying if we imagine for ourselves or conceptualize rather than imagine uh, an alternative sensibility, an alternative sensory structure, for instance, one that can perceive 4 dimensions of space, we can't imagine that, but we can conceptualize it, then the concepts of the understanding also apply to those. Right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yep.
he's saying. Now he's saying that this doesn't get us anywhere, right? The further extension of concepts beyond our sensible intuition does not get us anywhere. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case, right?
Yeah.
When
with
we
force
actually look
field,
at these
for example.
disciplines.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it seems like he might have allowed for it with this little sentence here, allowed for or explained where these disciplines that didn't exist in his time fit into his schema, or would fit into his adjusted schema. Right. So we're extending, in this case, we would be extending our understanding beyond the limitations of our sensibility, but not beyond the limitations of sensibility in general.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to continue then.
Yeah.
For they are then merely empty concepts of objects, though through which we cannot even judge whether the latter are possible or not. Well, that doesn't seem to be true, though, in that case. Mere forms of thought without objective reality, since we have available no intuition to which the synthetic unity of our perception, which they alone contain, could be applied, and thus could determine an object. Our sensible and empirical intuition alone can provide them with sense and significance.
Yeah, that is
Maybe
not what
not.
you just said. Yeah.
Okay.
Our. Oh, wait.
What the
Wait,
hell?
what did he just
Oh
say?
my God!
Our
No
sensible.
way!
Yeah, it's a problem that it seems like we do, in fact, apply mathematics to things that extend beyond 3 dimensions, right? Because he says space and time are 3 dimensional, and our sensible conditions of space and time are 3 dimensional. And he then says that the categories and the understanding can only apply to 3 dimensional space time. But then what are we doing in math that goes beyond 3 dimensions? It seems like a problem.
Yeah.
Oh hell no!
Yeah.
Actually, I think we need a womp womp. I think you need to grab yourself a womp womp.
We need the air horn.
Yep.
There we go.
Yep, that's the one. There we
Another
go.
Kantian L. All right.
Yeah, this seems like an L for Kant, alongside the pure natural science.
Oh God,
just
that's
things that
this
get
isn't
proven
as
wrong.
bad though. This isn't as bad, I would argue.
Why?
Yeah, it probably isn't as bad.
Well, I guess
that
not
one's just
as bad.
embarrassing. This one is at least like you have to think
Makes
about
sense.
it for a little while. The other one is just like blatantly wrong. Like I don't know.
Which one?
You were
Harris,
defending it so hard.
No, I was defending the possibility of it, but it just stopped making
Wait,
sense.
are we talking about the transcendental self?
No,
subject?
no. This is something
Oh,
else.
we're talking about something else.
Well, it has really no relevance to this, so I'm gonna. We'll tell you after, but I just want to continue with this for the sake of the recording.
Yeah.
Harrison, do you want to read, or I can read if you don't want
Sure, yeah.
to? Okay, cool.
Thus, if one assumes an object of a non-sensible intuition as given, one can certainly represent it through all of the predicates that already lie in the presupposition that nothing belongs to sensible intuition pertains to it. Thus, it is not extended or in space, that its duration is not a time, that no alteration, sequence of determinations in time, is to be encountered in it. But it is not yet a genuine cognition if I merely indicate what the intuition of the object is not, without being able to say what is then contained in it. For then I have not represented the possibility of an object for my pure concept of the understanding at all, um, since I cannot give any intuition that would correspond to it, but could only say that ours is not valid for it. But what is most important here is that not even a single category could be applied to such a thing. The concept of substance, i.e., that of something that could exist as subject but never as a mere predicate, for I would not even know whether there could be anything that corresponded to this determination of thought if empirical intuition did not give me the case for its application. But more of this in the sequel.
Marvel ass sounding Kant. Okay. Wait, is he critiquing substance here? That kind of popped out at me. Oops. What is most important here is that substance. Oh no, it's just saying that I couldn't apply it to something that, yeah, is not. Okay. So yeah, basically you have to know what it is that you are cognizing.
So actually, I found this quite interesting,
Yeah.
right? Because it tells us what we can say about the thing in itself and what we can't in Kant's view. He's not saying that nothing at all in any circumstance can be said about the thing in itself. Instead, he's saying that we can have this purely negative determination, right? If one assumes an object of a sensible intuition as given, then we can say it's not extended, we can say it's not in space, we can say there has no time, no alteration, etc., right? But that doesn't achieve the status of cognition, according to Kant, because we don't have basically
An
the
idea of what
object.
it is. Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
then further outlines the difference between thinking and cognition.
Right. It does then further outline the difference between thinking and cognition, I think.
But
So we have.
I don't know if he's
So for
talking about
instance, we
thing
could
in
have a
itself
thought.
though.
We will get into this with Kant, but for instance, we can have a thought of God, and we can say God is not extended, not in space, duration is not time,
But
that
if we
there
don't
is no
have an idea
alteration in
of
God,
what God
but we
is,
don't have an actual. Yeah, exactly. There's no actual cognition there. But then, it seems like, right,
he seems to be
the
attacking Spinoza
connection.
here though. At this
Well, the
sentence.
problem. Well, he's attacking all rationalism, but the problem seems to be, um, he's is he divorcing cognition from knowledge or what?
What do
Right?
you think about divorcing cognition
Well, he
from
doesn't really
knowledge?
bring up knowledge specifically in the previous,
I mean,
Where
is he
does he bring
divorcing
up
thinking from?
knowledge? But where does he bring up knowledge? Anywhere so
no,
far?
no.
But I
Wouldn't
wonder. Okay, so for the future, I wonder, right? If we can't have cognition, can we have knowledge of it?
We'll just see what he says, I
I
guess.
see. So
I
it's
don't
like,
know.
is thinking enough for knowledge?
Right. Well, it seems like it has to be based on this because if we can accurately say it is not extended, that seems to be
Piece of knowledge.
a,
Yeah.
A form of
yeah, a
knowledge.
proposition of knowledge, even
Yeah.
though it doesn't seem to be cognition.
Yeah.
So it seems to be that we don't need cognition for knowledge, and if we don't need cognition for knowledge, then actually, what are we doing here, Kant? Because I'm not interested in what you call cognition. I'm interested in knowledge. This is epistemology.
Well, I guess we could say more specifically that it's not that you don't need cognition, but you don't like we do need to cognize something, but not like.
Unless
But
he
Well,
is
what's
I guess
saying you need
cognized in
cognition.
this example?
Unless you need cognition for knowledge, and then that was the.
Well, I guess like you have to for like the instance of like the space time thing, you have to cognize the effects that which allow you to observe that there is in fact a thing that is having this effect.
Huh?
You aren't cognizing 4 dimensions, but you are cognizing in 3 dimensions the effect of 4 dimensions.
Let's get away from the dimensions here because that's a possibility. But let's talk about something that is absolutely intellectual in substance, right? God, right? Or even the soul, human freedom, right? The 3 things that Kant loves to talk about as like intellectual
Metaphysics.
ideas that can't be cognized.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's take God. We can say God is not extended or God is not in space. Does this not constitute knowledge? Or if it does constitute knowledge,
I guess
is the
it's
claim
knowledge.
that it's knowledge about some like the things we can cognize and not about God?
I guess it's knowledge. It really. I guess that becomes knowledge
You
about
know
what
what
we
probably
can't cognize.
happens? Can I give a guess?
Sure.
Sorry. What probably happens is that you run into antinomies.
I guess, but hold on. He's saying that even with the idea of God, right? We can say that if God exists, God is not extended. Is this
That's
not
because that's how
knowledge?
we've defined God.
Sure, but does that not constitute knowledge? That's my question. Simply,
it does.
does
It
it
does
constitute
constitute.
knowledge
It
or
does, it
not?
does constitute knowledge, but is it the same
Does
kind
knowledge
of
extend
knowledge?
to hypothetical like logic? I guess it does, right?
Yeah, I would say that it does.
Okay. I'm inclined to agree with
But I
you.
guess
I don't know what Kant says about
knowledge
that.
would also have to include
But
that.
maybe it's not the knowledge that's relevant, right? Maybe Kant doesn't need to deny that we have knowledge, but merely knowledge of the existence, right?
Yeah, he might be talking about specific like ontological knowledge.
Right. So it's not that we couldn't have knowledge of God, namely
we
knowledge of
don't.
what God would be,
Yeah.
but simply that we don't
Well,
have knowledge that God is.
Yeah, that's why he brings up that
Yeah.
like extended like extended mind or whatever, like divine mind.
So
I guess-
cognition, then it seems like, yeah, and it makes sense because Kant talks later about the ideas of pure reason, and he seems to talk about like what these ideas are, right?
Yeah.
Rather than leaving it as an ambiguous empty. So then it seems like maybe we're right to say cognition is not required for knowledge. You can have knowledge without what Kant is calling cognition.
Yeah, but it becomes very weird knowledge.
Yeah, I guess it's
atypical knowledge.
It's knowledge.
It does.
Well,
If
we
that's
have
the
not-
case.
I guess then we can't have knowledge about. Well, I think just to clarify, is it that we can't have knowledge about whether a thing is, but we can have a knowledge of what a thing could be in theory.
Yes.
Okay.
Specific. So you're talking about what he's talking about here, when you have an object in the negative.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So or what a thing isn't really.
Yeah.
but actually
the negative. That was a weird phrase. Man.
Well, that makes sense.
Right.
Object in the negative. That's intuitive. Yeah, because it's like, you were.
Although one thing that does seem to add to our knowledge in a meaningful way is the impossibility of certain hypotheticals.
The impossibility of certain. Like if a square exists, it is a circle.
Sure, but not, but including the nonsensible ones, the ones that have nothing to do with intuition, right? So the impossibility of there is a God, but that God even though possessing like all the other transcendental characteristics is not all powerful, for instance.
Okay.
Right? So God is all knowing, is truth, is beauty, all that stuff, but God is not all powerful. There is like another power, a principle of evil or something like that. So that kind of theology is actually still accessible to us, no? Or
Yeah.
it seems to be from where I'm looking right now. It seems like, well, useful useful metaphysical propositions can be made about purely intellectual subjects. Subjects meaning topic here, not like
Right.
the
In
subject.
the sense of thinking and not cognizing.
Right, in the sense of thinking and not cognizing. But it seems like it does add to our knowledge, or at least clarify our knowledge.
Sure. I don't think Kant would disagree with that. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he might disagree with some of the places I would take it, but
maybe
yeah,
in general.
that is definitely interesting to me
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. I hope we get more into that as we go into the ideas of pure reason and such.
because he's talking a lot about like his conclusion here,
Yeah. Um,
without meaning to, I
but
think.
more of this in the sequel. So we'll definitely. I wonder if this is the sequel. Um, or
More of it in the sequel. It's
if
probably the sequel.
yeah. Cool. Well, that is the section. The section 23, just nothing.
The
Um,
sequel. If the critique of reason is so great, why isn't there a critique of reason too?
arguably there is, depending on what you mean. There's by Kant himself, there are two more critiques, and
Yeah, there is. There's critique of practical reason. It basically is the critique. Yeah, it basically is a trilogy.
yeah, and then critique of judgment, and then also if you mean like sequel in like terms of content, you have post-Hegelian epistemological works like Science of Knowing, Science of Logic,
Spin-off.
System of Transcendental
The
Philosophy.
Kant cinematic universe.
Yeah, it is just it's the German idealist cinematic, German idealist literary universe. Yeah, more of this in the sequel. I think he does actually talk
Or
about
just the
things like
sequel.
this, and I gotta read the second critique, man. Maybe we should
I
just,
have.
since we're reading Hegel already, instead of maybe after this we should go on to the second critique. I don't know.
Um,
We'll make plans. If you have an opinion, let us know in the comments if you're watching this far. So cool. We'll see you in section 24 after a very interesting section 23 about thinking, cognizing, and what we can and can't do that, and some speculation on our part about what that has to do, and more as it relates to general epistemology. So, yay! What's next on the application of the categories to objects of the senses in general? Another wordy title. That's next time, yay! And I have to take more pictures if we want to do that tonight. So we'll talk about that. All right, cool. See you next time. Bye.